This is a presentation on homelessness among people with an addiction, prepared for the Sociology of Homelessness by Daisy Molina Cortez at Northern Illinois University. There are many individuals who become homeless due to different factors. Once they're homeless, it's very difficult to sustain a healthy lifestyle, and a lot resort to drugs and alcohol as a way of forgetting what they're going through. This often leads to an addiction that is overlooked and ignored by society. They are more vulnerable to getting abused, being kicked out of shelters, and much more. Substance use disorders are also higher in a homelessness community than the general population. For this presentation, I argue that this population is very vulnerable and that there aren't many policies set out to help them. Also, that addictive disorders are a part of mental illness and treatments should be set out to help them battle with this disorder. And lastly, if addiction disorders are treated at a young age, the less likely homeless youth would become dependent of any types of drugs or alcohol. First, I will discuss the different types of vulnerability this population has to deal with. According to the study conducted by Anderson, Shannon, and Goldstein, the addiction disability benefits was a policy that was set out to help support those with addictions because they are considered a form of mental disorders. Once this policy was passed, a lot of people criticized the reform and said that these people are just drug addicts stealing money from taxpayers. Due to the backlash, the addiction disability benefits was terminated in December 31st of 1996. The study conducted by Anderson and colleagues wanted to assess the effect of this termination. They interviewed around 101 people who received these benefits. They found out that nearly 80% used their addiction disability money to pay for rent. This helped them become independent once again. A 54-year-old male who was part of the study said, "I lived on the streets eating out of garbage cans when my unemployment ran out. That is why I'm saying I will not live on the streets again. What I did with that money was I was living in the park, I went and bought some clothes and went and bought me a car and got me a nice apartment and tried to get back on my feet again." Another vulnerability this population faces is substance dependence. Tomset, Domoff, and Toro noted that the substance dependence for homeless individuals is way higher than those who live in a house or are housed. Their study looked at homeless youth between the ages of 13 and 17. They indicated that recent homelessness led to alcohol abuse. 69% of the homeless youth indicated being dependent on a substance, meaning they needed to have multiple drinks or do drugs in just one single day so they could get by. 30% of these individuals also indicated being dependent on more than just one substance. Homeless persons who have an addiction disorder are vulnerable to peer pressure, making it harder for them to quit or to get help or to help someone who's trying to quit themselves. Megan, an 18-year-old, said, "Well, even just amongst me, like I just didn't care. I'd do anything. I let anybody else do anything. I was like, I'm gonna get fucked up. I want everyone else to too." Secondly, I will discuss how addictive disorders are a form of mental illness. According to Hodulik, around 40% of people who are homeless suffer from alcoholism, and it's seen more in men than women. She also states that more than 1/3 of people who are homeless suffer from mental illnesses that go unnoticed and untreated. This number goes all the way up to 90% when just talking about women alone. A huge part of why mental disorders go untreated is due to the deinstitutionalization. New drugs have been created to help treat certain mental disorders. Once the patients are given these new drugs and start to act quote unquote normal, they are then sent out into society with no other help. Hodulik talks about how Medicaid and Medicare, which are set out to help people, how they actually help the movement for deinstitutionalization, where many mental health patients were thrown into the streets. According to Ferguson, Bender, Thompson, and Polio, youth find it hard to get help from mental health services, and once they become adults, they find themselves with longer lines and no help. This leads to them not seeking help and addictive disorders to become harder to battle. There's also been a huge increase of incarcerated individuals that do not receive the services they need during their times, making it harder for the cycle of homelessness to end. Lastly, I will discuss in more detail homeless youth and how they battle with addictions. Melander, Tyler, and Schmitz reported that 75% of homeless youth indicated being lifetime users. The rates of substance use among homeless youth has increased over the years, and it's the highest compared to other age groups. In this study, they interviewed homeless youth to see when using a substance was acceptable or unacceptable. A lot reported high use when it came to managing their emotions. They especially used it to cover or numb feelings related to child abuse. Emily, one of the girls who was interviewed, stated, back when I was using, in stressful situations, when I was mad and when I was sad, I used emotionally every emotion. They also reported using when feeling angry or upset. The use of drugs and alcohol is used in a way to cope with the hardships of living on the streets. It also depends on who they are around. If they're around a group who is more likely to drink and to do drugs, they would do the same. Homeless youth, due to their abuse of substances, are more likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors. But if they seek treatment at an early age, these obstacles can be overcome. In a study conducted by Zhang and Slesnik in 2018, they examined 3 different types of treatment to see if any of them would be helpful for homeless youth and how to battle substance abuse. The first intervention was CRA, which stands for Community Reinforcement Approach, followed by MET, Motivational Enhancement Therapy, and CM, Case Management. They looked at homeless adolescents and young adults who frequented a homeless drop-in center in Ohio. They all had to meet the requirements defined by the McKinney-Vento Act. They were all split into the 3 different intervention groups and had follow-up assessments at 3, 6, and 12 months post-baseline. They were all offered gift cards after the end of each assessment. The findings showed evidence for a decrease of substance abuse in the homeless youth in all 3 interventions, CRA, MET, and CM. They also found out that CRA was the best to show improvements in substance abuse in homeless youth. So what can be done for this population? One of the main things is to stop ignoring this population and stop treating them as just drug addicts on the street stealing people's money. Another way is to create better policies to help them, like the addiction disability movement that was very helpful for them, especially when it came to housing, because they used most of their money to pay rent, and that was the main thing they used, and it helped them become independent once again. There's need to be better treatment facilities, or actually more accessible treatment facilities for this population. Another one is mental health awareness. This one ties into treatment facilities. People need to be more aware of mental health illnesses, also that addiction disorders are a part of that and they need help, and it's something that we can easily help out with. Also, since homeless youth is one of the biggest populations to abuse substances, it is important to help and educate them on the use and causes of an addiction.